efficient paperwork processing is really big. I think what we offered was what I would call an effortless experience. So when you deal with us, you're going to get the care that you need from my tone of voice when we're on the phone, and all of the formalities of the paperwork are going to be seamless. You're going to be able to do it online. I'm going to be able to review it online and tell you that everything's A-okay. And if there are any other authorizing parties, they should also be able to do their part online from any device, preferably, and then payment online as well. So I think the online completion of paperwork and payment are the biggest keys to an effortless online cremation experience.
Yeah. So paperwork was actually, the number one on my list too, just because I think it can create kind of havoc if it's not right. If
Yeah.
it's confusing, it just leads to way more interactions back and forth with that family, way more likelihood of frustrations on both parties' ends, right? Yours and the family's. And having seen like so many different, just call it cremation authorizations at this point, being a party pro and seeing all the different clients that come in, like there is a range, I'm telling you, from a 1-page, 2-signature, simple to, 5 to 6 pages, 25 initials. Like
Yeah.
there is a massive range. And so I think it is worth giving thought and consideration to the simplicity of your paperwork, making sure that it can be easily understood, that it answers the appropriate questions that need to be answered, that it just not, I think of like when a family opens these documents, are they like, what is this that I have to fill out? Or is it more like, okay, this seems straightforward. You want that straightforward feel for everything with the business, especially if you're looking at it as that overall experience for the family. You want that website experience to be simple. You want the arrangement process to be simple. You want the paperwork process to be simple. Not that it can't be lengthy if it has to, but I think there's a lot to be said for using simple language that is easy to understand. The next steps are clear. And when you're trying to be digital, giving some thought to the way that the form will interact digitally versus the way it interacts in person is also worth looking at. Because some of the forms and things don't make as much sense when you put them in, a digital version, when you're not explaining things than they do if your intention is to always to be able to sit down with family and explain this portion. Well, you can't really do that anymore. So let's think about how we can clean that up and make it so you don't have to have that extra phone conversation to explain that portion that's not really clear.
I think what you said, Ashley, really hammers home the idea that we had earlier about what we need versus what the experience creates, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cremation authorizations that you're talking about that are 5 pages and require 25 initials, I'm sure cover every single legal base that you need to make sure that if something goes wrong, I am covered 100%, 110%, and this is ironclad, right? But at the same time, is there a way that could have been created to achieve the same thing in a much easier way, right? Like, just sending something over from what your lawyer has created all the way over and saying, okay, I'm not even going to like think about how I could create this better, or maybe taking it from your lawyer, rewording it or redoing it, and then getting it approved and going through multiple iterations to make it much easier. I think there are many advantages to making that easier. And I think on your end too, as someone who's getting that paperwork signed, not having to go through I can guarantee you the people that only have to sign 2 places versus the people that have to sign 25, that's going to generate more phone calls. That's going to generate more frustration. That's going to generate less business reviews on Google if the experience is so confusing and so tedious that they like don't want to leave you a review, right? So I think that there are benefits to that maybe aren't initially seen.
Because I can immediately understand the argument where a funeral home could say the family's interacting with it once, it's done. But I think it does lead to the less questions back and forth, less explaining that your staff has to do, less phone calls, just less confusion overall. And I think that's the key. Yeah.
Would you say there was things that you guys did in your respective businesses that were proactive about to eliminate some of the more questions you would get? Were there extra emails you sent out at certain steps? Were there extra phone calls you would make proactively so that families
Yeah.
wouldn't have to call you? Were there examples of that, Will?
Yeah. I was juggling families and like marketing stuff and shipping cremated remains. So when I had a family that I was counseling, I had to come up with a way that this family felt like they were getting a 5-star experience while eliminating as much time for myself as I possibly could. And a lot of that involved just front loading the conversation. So if the person passed away at like midnight tonight and the next morning I get assigned the case, I'm going to take maybe 20 to 25 minutes to have a conversation with the next of kin tomorrow morning and explain the entire process to them. I'm going to express my condolences. I'm going to tell them that the process includes paperwork and payment. I'm going to send over the paperwork for them and go through it all. And after you go through it all, you can email me with questions or call if you need to. Here are some common questions and common forms that people generally find confusing. They're pages 6, 7, and 9. Here are the answers to those questions right here up front for you. And then say, after all this, I'll review the paperwork and automatically send you an invoice online to pay based on the number of death certificates you order, let's say. So that way, basically, I've covered my bases that they don't need a call until maybe after they've completed the paperwork and payment portions, which gives me a lot of my time back. I know that most of the frequently asked questions that they have are already answered.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that in a very kind way, give that extra time and extra minutes on the phone, not in person, on the front end. And I'm always happy to do that over the phone on the front end because they're not coming in, right? So I don't mind giving, an extra 15 minutes on the phone if it saves me an hour-long in-person arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. I think for another one that I could think of too is when people are pre-planning or they've come in and taken care of an at-need arrangement, but the removal hasn't been done yet. I think it's always good practice that once that removal is complete, you reach out to the family to let them know that the removal has been complete, your loved one's now in our care, just to continue to build that continuity and just so they feel like they are kind of in the loop with the process too. And they've not just signed this documents and they're going to hear from you when that cremation is done. And some families will want that and that's okay. But I think just building in those little communication points. We also did that once a family finished their online arrangement and their paperwork. It was just a call to say, we've received this. These are the next steps. This is when you can expect to hear from us next. Clarify any questions that they had, clarify anything we needed to clarify, and just have that touch point. So again, they're kind of in the loop. And so I think those are good ones to think about too. But yeah, you're right. Being able to spend a little bit of time on the phone, having the family kind of understand the process, it pays off. Even though it's time spent on the phone, it's a payoff because you're not going to hopefully have those several calls during them filling out that paperwork or going through the process because you've taken the time to explain it up front.
Right. I think you said it really nicely, Ashley, letting them know when they should expect to hear from you next. So you're telling them that you're in it with them and you're also controlling the communication as well, which is good for you on both fronts.
Yeah.
I think setting proper expectations is really important, right? It reduces questions, it reduces back and forth, and it will save you time, it'll save frustration. It'll just make a better experience overall. I hate to minimize this to ordering something online, but when you know exactly what day it's going to be, when you know the process in which you're at, you know where it is, you see that it's making progress, you don't really have questions, right? But if it's something where it's just like, I order something and it's just going to show up when it shows up, I don't have any idea when it's going to happen. There's always a little bit of question. There's always a little bit of frustration there. And I don't think in a heightened emotional experience, I'm sure that's going to be tenfold, right? 20-fold, 100-fold, right? So I think setting proper expectations is something that you really have to do. And it's going to eliminate a ton of back and forth. And it's going to just give everyone the proper expectations so everyone's on the same page.